Take projection.
It's Friday morning, and you know what that means. It's time for the Alabama Slam podcast. I'm your host, Corey Hanna.
What's going on, guys? It's Patrick Akers.
And it is our 1-year anniversary. We had already recorded 20 minutes of an episode, and I surprised Patrick by telling him. And now we're having to start over again because of a critical error on the part of Libsyn's recording. So we're recording on a different interface. But happy birthday to us, man.
Happy birthday. Those 20 minutes we just did are probably the best we'll ever do, and no one will hear it. It's forever lost in the ether.
That's right. God damn it. We were 19 minutes and 51 seconds in. Y'all never hear it. You just gotta pretend that it was fucking awesome, and we'll try to do our best to recap some of the stuff that we've gone over. Yeah, if you don't already, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Alabama Slam Pod. You can find us on Facebook as well. Just search Alabama Slam Podcast. And be sure to follow our network of friends and fellow podcasters and writers at thealabamatake.com. And the Alabama Take is on all social media at the Alabama Take. Not hard to find. We got sports podcasts, book podcasts, Star Wars podcasts, pop culture podcasts, and maybe even some other things coming down the pike soon. So let's get into WWE from last week. Starting with SmackDown, I think we're getting a little closer every day to Jey Uso slapping the holy shit out of Roman Reigns. Roman gave Jimmy the pie face the other night, said that they weren't holding up their end of their responsibilities and the bloodline, and that he and Solo were going to face Sammy and KO at Night of Champions.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about. I did not see this one coming, this tag team of Roman and Solo going up against KO and Sammy for the titles. For as much shit as fans give Roman for not being on the show every single week, when he is on the show, it feels like a big deal. And he delivers every single time. He is absolutely fantastic. The promo was great. I love Paul Heyman. But yeah, we'll see how they book this at Night of Champions. You have to think that either Jimmy or Jey end up costing Roman and Solo the match. Because I don't know that you would put the belts on Roman and Solo this close, or take them off Sammy and KO, rather, to give them to Roman. We've talked about since the podcast started, since we've been watching WWE, that the fall of the bloodline really needs to come from the inside. We thought that would be Sammy. Looks like it's probably going to be either Jimmy or Jey, or the combination of the Usos. It would be kind of crazy to see Usos... what if at WrestleMania, like, Roman has already lost the titles, and it's Jimmy and Jey versus Roman and Solo?
I mean, that could be interesting. I think the key to it, and you've said it before, it's like Jey is at the center of all this, right? Yeah. And he was the one that was torn when shit got heated between Roman and Sammy, and it looked like at one point Jey might side with Sammy, and you had kind of called it that you thought Jey would be the one that would cause Roman to lose shit at Mania. They didn't give it to us that way, but I think that's ultimately where it could be going, though.
And it could be that they didn't just give it to us this year, but that's what they plan on going next year.
Yeah.
We're already middle of May. So we're rocking and rolling through here, and you have to think, Money in the Bank, and then SummerSlam, and then there'll be Royal Rumble, and then we'll be right back at WrestleMania. So it's actually not that far away, even though it is kind of that far away. But you got to think, with Roman not being on the show every single week, you don't chew through as much story week in and week out as you would with any of these normal regular stories where the men and women are on week in and week out.
Yeah, it will be satisfying as hell, though, when it finally happens. When Jey is finally like, fuck this shit, I'm out.
Which is a real testament to all of these dudes that are involved.
Yeah.
You know, it's a testament to Roman's greatness. It's a testament to Jimmy and Jey. I still wonder about Solo. I try not to be a hater on this podcast. Even Friday night, who's the smallest dude in the ring? It's the dude that they're trying to present as the biggest badass, or one of the biggest badasses of the group. I don't know.
Yeah.
We will see what happens with that, but it should be a good match at Night of Champions. And Night of Champions is shaping up to be a pretty damn good card.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to that in a minute. Now I say that, I've closed the tab that was in that because we had just finished up that, so I gotta search that again real quick. But I do want to touch on a couple other WWE things before we get to that card. Monday night there was a situation in the ring. KO was in there. Dom was talking, and KO says, "I can't hear anything he's saying. Can I just punch him in the face already?" Just good shit. KO was on fucking fire the last couple weeks with this, and then him giving the thumbs down in the background the week before to the hard cam, just like jumping from behind the ref, just like, "Hey, thumbs down, thumbs down." Look, good shit. I love KO's energy right now.
Yeah, he just makes memeable moments, right? Seems like a lot of that is just how do we make what little thing can I do that turns into a GIF or a meme?
Yeah. Yeah, like instantly I was searching for it in GIFs that night on Twitter, and it, of course, the internet is undefeated. That shit was on there pretty quickly. So, you know, Dom's still getting the major heat, and you're here for it. One of your favorites at the moment right now. He doesn't have anything happening at Night of Champions. I mean, he'll obviously come in with Ripley during her match, I would assume. But none of the rest of Judgment Day have any matches that night, as of right now. And it's a pretty loaded card at the moment in terms of number of matches, so I doubt they'll add anything else.
Yeah, the matches that they've announced so far will probably be it. And I mean, yeah, Dominic doesn't even need a match, right? He can just come out, get booed out of the building. That's how great he is right now.
Booed out of the country.
The whole Middle East. He's going to get booed out of an entire region of the world. Fantastic stuff.
So, Monday night on Raw, I don't think they had announced this before, but they had a battle royal to see who would be the challenger to face Gunther at Night of Champions. And I was surprised by the outcome, but I'm not mad at it. Mustafa Ali was the champion of the Battle Royal that night. And I think it could be an interesting match. Gunther will win, but I would like to see Ali finally get his push at some point. He's been fucked over a few times. Once he got fucked. I wouldn't say fucked over. He was going to get the run that Kofi went on a few years ago, but he got injured. And then Kofi ended up getting that run. But yeah, I mean, I'd like to see it happen. This could be a big moment for him. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, this will probably be the best match at Night of Champions. Yeah, like you, I don't foresee anybody beating Gunther for that title in the near future. Gunther is just that good. Gunther might actually be the best wrestler in the world, given the limitations that he has to play in, being in that WWE sandbox. He is just absolutely incredible, and we come away from every single one of these pay-per-views absolutely impressed with everything that man does. So, however WWE views him, obviously they view him as a top star, deservedly so. The biggest question with Gunther is, when does he get that push into that next level of stardom, where he's competing for world titles and such?
That's what I was going to ask, was at what point did they have either somebody beat him and let him go on towards his next big push, or one of the things you mentioned in our failed attempt at recording a few minutes ago was, does he maybe carry a couple of belts like Seth did a few years ago?
Yeah, the old double champion gimmick. I don't know. It's a great question. He's absolutely flawless, though, with everything that he does. And I think it also just goes to show that, look, you don't have to have the main title to make yourself feel important when it comes to pro wrestling. I think Cody has done that well. Post WrestleMania, he's not had the title, but the feud that he has with Brock Lesnar, I think, has elevated both men. And then Gunther, too. Gunther has taken that Intercontinental Championship. Well, it kind of throughout WWE's history, it kind of ebbs and flows, and it becomes important, and then it kind of wanes in importance. And right now, it is at a moment where it feels like a very big deal. Like whoever beats Gunther for this title, it's going to feel like a moment, and that's because of the work that he's done and the matches that he's had, the caliber of those matches, and the way WWE has booked him. I don't know who that guy's going to be. I do not think it's going to be Ali next Saturday. But it's a good spot for Ali to be into, to remind people what kind of performer he is inside the ring. And like I said, this would be... It's not even a dark horse candidate at this moment to be match of the night because it's got Gunther in it. And any match that Gunther is in is probably going to be the best match on that card.
Yeah.
But yeah, this should be a good match. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they put Ali's style up against Gunther. 'Cause two totally different styles, but it could make for a really interesting match. I mean, Gunther and Ricochet, have had some great in-ring interactions, so it could be interesting. Looking at the card, though, I mean, the World Heavyweight Championship, Seth Rollins versus AJ Styles. I had mentioned naively that maybe it could be one last run for AJ, and then you were like, hell no, they're going to put the belt on Seth because he's going to be in that new Captain America movie, and they want him carrying that belt everywhere during the press junket, which I thought was funny, and I should have seen it coming from a mile away. But that's why I host and keep the conversation moving and let you speak on the important shit. So,
well, I mean, yeah, that's just, that's booking. It's booking 101. It's the easiest call to make. Oh, the dude's about to be in front of a ton of eyeballs because he's in one of the biggest franchises in the world. Yeah, let's put the title on him so that WWE logo is everywhere around him, So when kids are watching the Marvel movie and they're like, oh, who is this Seth Rollins guy? Which I guess he's not going to be... He probably won't be credited as Seth Rollins, right? It'll probably be, what's his real name? Colby Lopez?
Yeah, I have no clue.
Something like that. Yeah, I don't know how they do that. Was Roman Reigns credited as Roman Reigns when he was in that Fast and the Furious movie? I don't know. I have to look that up after the podcast.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even know what Roman's real name is. Yep.
I couldn't tell you. Yeah. Roman. Next up, Brock Lesnar versus Cody Rhodes. Go ahead and give your prediction on this one. I think you're right.
Yeah, I mean, this is your classic spot to do a squash match where Brock just beats the ever-loving hell out of Cody Rhodes in about 5 minutes. It makes Brock look stronger. It gives Cody yet another obstacle to try to overcome as you're seeing what you're going to do with him. I mean, my guess is he probably challenges Roman Reigns for the world title at next year's WrestleMania. So this is another feather in his cap as you build him back up to do that. And I mean, I think it's been good for both guys. This was the big question we had post WrestleMania: is what do you do with Cody Rhodes and how do you make him continue to be relevant? I don't think a lot of people predicted a feud with Brock Lesnar, but I think it's worked out for both men, and it's kept my interest. I've liked it quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm a pretty notorious Lesnar hater, but it's definitely been interesting and kept my attention longer than I thought it would. Up next, Undisputed Tag Team Championship, Sami Zayn and KO versus Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa. I don't think Roman and Solo will get these belts that night. I guess Solo will take a pin, probably, right?
Probably, yeah, after Jimmy and Jey try to interfere and end up screwing it up on behalf of the Bloodline. It's just, I think this is nothing more than just a convenient way to try to keep this Bloodline story going. Obviously, Sami has a history with him. You need a big match at Night of Champions. Roman really doesn't have a challenger right now for his title, which is a good question. Who would be the next in line? Because you would have to imagine Roman's going to defend his title one-on-one at SummerSlam. That's the next big thing. I don't even know who it would be on SmackDown at this point.
Yeah.
Unless they do something, the escalation or the disintegration of the Bloodline could escalate. And do they do Jey Uso versus Roman Reigns at SummerSlam. Does this whole thing come toppling down come Night of Champions? That's a question too. Like, we know the bloodline's gonna fall at some point. I guess now is just, where is that gonna be? Is it at next year's WrestleMania? Is it at SummerSlam? Is it at the Royal Rumble? Like, when are we gonna get the full blown? Okay, we have the Usos on one side and we have Roman and Solo on the other.
Yeah. Good question. I think it's we're seeing the cracks a little more with each passing week. You could tell Jay's kind of at the end of his rope, or at least he's damn near it. With the way he reacted the other night when Jimmy got pie-faced. So yeah, I think it could happen sooner rather than later, but do they want to string that out and have that be something that leads up to Mania next year, or do they just want to kind of, put a Band-Aid on it for the next few months and start building that shit back up again around Christmas?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest question that's going to linger over SmackDown for the near future is what happens with the world title on that show, and how fast does the fallout of the bloodline happen? It's going to be entertaining regardless of how long it goes, and it's going to make for a satisfying conclusion. So we'll see how that plays out over the next couple of months.
Yeah. So up next for the Intercontinental Championship, Gunther versus Ali. We kind of talked about this one a bit already. Gunther will get that one. Will be interesting. I think I can't remember if I said it this recording or the other one, but Ali style versus Gunther to see, how that works out. And then Raw Women's Championship, Ripley versus Natalya. This one is probably the one I'm looking forward to the least, just in terms of moving anything forward. But with Rhea, it's always going to be entertaining.
Yeah, we said the same thing about Rhea and Charlotte at WrestleMania, and we're like, oh, we're not really feeling this one. And then we came on this podcast and was like, holy shit, that was awesome. So, yeah. That's just a testament to how good Rhea Ripley is. Natalya can go in the ring too, so yeah, this is just an excuse to get Rhea on the card. She's same thing that they did at Backlash, give her an opponent, let her win. She looks great in victory. And she continues, and we'll see who is the next woman. Come Monday night, or last Monday night, she was staring at the monitor as Becky Lynch was delivering her promo. So you got to think that a Becky Lynch versus Rhea Ripley program is somewhere on the near horizon for the WWE and for Monday Night Raw. So I'm down for that too. That'd be great.
Yeah, fuck yeah. I'd love it. Give me that. Speaking of Becky, she faces Trish Stratus. Which should be entertaining. That's the last one listed on this site for the evening. You had mentioned that Lita kind of disappeared out of the storyline, like, recently, after being pretty prominent in it for a little bit. But I think this match will be fun. What are your thoughts on it?
This should be good too. Yeah. I like what Trish is doing. Obviously, Becky Lynch is a huge star. The rumors were that they were going to keep this thing going until SummerSlam, which is in August. You still have 4 more months. I guess you could do that. If you do that, I think Lita has to reinsert herself into this story at some point, either on the side of Becky Lynch going up against Trish, or probably what's the more interesting thing to do is to have Trish and Lita team up as sort of the returning legends who feel like they have never got their due respect from this generation of women's stars. That would mean at some point you need to find a tag team partner for Becky. But I think that's good. That's a cool match that you could stretch out here for the next couple months. So do we see Lita return next Saturday at Night of Champions to help Trish Stratus get the win? That's something to watch. Yeah.
Well, let's switch gears to Dynamite. We've got several AEW things to discuss for the week. We shit on some of the way the production is handled some here and there with Dynamite, but I thought they did a really great job with the way Jericho and Roderick Strong brawl took place last night. That kind of shit is hard to do if you're in production. And I thought they handled it well. There was one camera guy almost got knocked the fuck out at one point, though, when they were out near the concession stand. I don't know if you caught that. But it was basically one dude handling most of the action there for a minute or two. And then I was like, where's the other camera guy? Yeah, and then you could see him kind of peeking through the crowd, and the camera almost got knocked out of his fucking hand. And I was like, uh-oh. Maybe they'll be rethinking how they do it. But you could tell, like, the crowd was just going to do what the crowd was going to do. The security was trying to keep them back, and people were just like, no, get out of the way. We're coming. But, yeah, I mean, that was entertaining, and to see it go outside, the Cole and the JAS were quote unquote banned from the building, but then Adam Cole's waiting outside, and I thought that was a nice little twist. And what did you think about that whole segment?
I thought the match between Jericho and Strong was absolutely fantastic. It was physical, it was brutal. Roderick Strong, I probably owe him like $60. Just because when I was wrestling, like, I stole all my shit from Roderick Strong. I probably owe Roderick Strong and Alex Shelley both like $60 a piece. Just because my whole moveset was just like straight up rip off is what those two guys was doing. So I've always been a Roderick Strong fan. It's cool to see him get in this position. This was a great match. I mean, those chops, especially those chops in that stairwell.
Yeah. God,
that sounded brutal. I've never seen two guys fight in a stairwell. And I almost thought, like, oh, shit, are they going to take a bump, like, down the stairs? Are they going to straight up do a, like, Hollywood shit? Yeah. Which was great. And then, I love the fact that Roderick, being smart, just let him out to the building. Also, it just proves how stupid Jericho Appreciation Society is. Like, why would they not have their guys staked out to the building? That would be the first thing that I would think about. Like, oh, you're banned from the building? All right, cool. It's false coming anywhere. I'm going to go outside the building. Then we're going to jump his ass. But again, like, you can play it up to Jericho's narcissism, right? He thinks he can beat Roderick Strong all by himself. This was fantastic. Yeah, shout out to production. And the fans were eating it up. Yeah, anytime you can brawl out into the fans, it makes it. It adds a cool little level of excitement to it.
So yeah, like the first live WWE event I ever went to was a SmackDown, and there was a brawl out in the hallway with her, or whatever you want to call it, with AJ Styles and Bryan Danielson, and that shit was fun. Daniel Bryan, excuse me. That shit was fun. They were knocking over like hot dog stands and shit like that, and knocking over merch and everything, and that was fun. I wasn't like out there in that section of the venue, but I was watching it from inside. But it was still fun. But yeah, kudos again to the production team for the way they did that last night. That shit was great. I thought the show top to bottom was great last night. There's great stuff with Ricky Starks and Jay White. I don't think we've seen the last of their feud yet, but Starks again is just the shit. And he and Jay White going at it. What I thought was, it wasn't the main. Well, was it the main? No, it wasn't the main event, but it was fun. Could have been a main event, I think. I don't know. What'd you think of the whole show last night?
It was interesting because this show while it was good, it felt really different in the fact that it started with a promo, it started with Wardlow and Christian Cage, and then it ended with the Elite and Blackpool Combat Club, and that way it felt very WWE-ish.
Yeah.
Which is interesting considering that AEW is about to. They're about to have another 2-hour show, Collision, on Saturdays. And so we have talked about for the longest on this podcast that if AEW could somehow get to a point to where the level or the quality of the stories they're telling matches the quality of the in-ring action that they put on week in and week out, this is going to be a fantastic program. Now, the television ratings seem to be not following and trending in that direction whatsoever, which is it's never a good sign when you have Tony Khan getting on Twitter and being like, hey, thanks, guys. The last 2 Dynamites were some of the highest rated on CageMatch.com. Where you're just like, Tony, just don't
do that.
Don't do that. Come on now. You don't have to. Don't be that much of like an internet nerd, right? Warner Brothers does not give a shit that these 2 Dynamites are the highest rated on CageMatch.com. You know what I mean? They want to see television ratings because they want those ad dollars coming in. So I saw that today and I thought that was really funny. But yeah, there were just a lot of things like the Orange Cassidy and Darby Allin team up.
Yeah.
For like no reason. While it's cool and it was a good match, like there's no reason to do that. Same way with like Sammy Guevara had just basically a squash match against a jobber.
Yeah.
That was no other reason just to give him something to do on the card and let him have his promo. Interesting enough, I thought Guevara's promo was really good. However, he's a complete babyface now, I guess, right?
Yeah. I mentioned last week or week before that I kind of had a change of heart, maybe a little bit about the way I feel about Sammy. Do you think the crowd is getting behind him a little more? Because he was getting booed out of the fucking building just a few months ago.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of it probably has to do with Wednesday night. They were in Texas. Sammy's a Texas guy. But yeah, it was just weird because his change of heart comes for like no reason. Yeah, they gave him no kind of narrative reason to all of a sudden be this like bleeding heart babyface, which we talked about last week. How this is more aligned to what his AEW All Access character was than it is to what he's been presented on Dynamite for a while now at this point. Yeah. So, also, is he still in J? Did he walk out of JAS? Is shit getting fucked up in my head? Has he not been a member of JAS for a while?
No, he still is, but he hasn't. I don't think he's come out with them since he's been doing this 4 Pillars thing the last few weeks. Because you would think that they would be like fucking shit up for him every week, but they've been stayed out of it, right? Yeah,
which doesn't make a ton of sense from just the storytelling aspect.
I mean, he's walked away from them in the past and came back. But that was like a year and a half ago.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to remember when I was watching Wednesday night. I was like, wait a second. So he or is he not a member of JAS at all?
Yeah, he still is. Unless I missed something.
Yeah, if we did, it's a colossal mess up on both of our parts. But yeah, again, that's a thing we've talked about ad nauseum on this podcast. This is where a writer's room comes in handy because people be like, well, what are we doing? Why is JAS not helping Sammy? Like, why is Jericho not helping Sammy? We need some kind of little kernel to give to the audience because essentially now, I guess Sammy's just going to be a babyface. And is he just going to not do anything with Jericho? Is his next program going to be against Jericho that makes him a full-on babyface? I don't know.
It's kind of leaning that way, but yeah, there does need to be some sort of break with him and the JAS if that is the case.
Yeah, but I think this is a better route for Sammy to go. I think he feels a little bit more natural in this kind of role where he can just kind of express himself, as like I think I talked about last week, as just the wrestling fan that made it. Yeah. And is living out his dream. That seems to be come a lot more easier to him than being this kind of dickish guy. Because when he's doing that, he kind of comes off as just a whiner a lot. Yeah. That's never a good look for anybody. But yeah, top to bottom, I thought the show was good. And it had more of a story through line through it. And like, I can't even remember the last time they started the show with a promo and ended it with a promo. I don't know if that's ever happened.
Yeah, I don't know. They did go through a phase there where they were starting out with a promo a couple, 3 times in a row. Yeah. Because I think we pointed out when they did it, because it felt different.
Yeah, but the beginning of the show with Wardlow and Christian Cage, I don't know how you feel about it. I'm just not interested in this at all. And it's crazy to think about, and this is what I was kind of hinting to at the last recording before it all went to shit, but like where Dominic Mysterio was at 12 months ago, and where Wardlow was at 12 months ago, if you were giving me, like, if this was a draft, and you're like, okay, who's the bigger prospect? 12 months ago, it would have been Wardlow, clearly. Now, I think it's Dominic Mysterio, and it's not even close.
Yeah.
Wardlow feels so generic. And I don't know what they do with him.
Yeah, it's hard to argue that. I don't know what went wrong. Right?
You know, I don't want to come down too hard on the guy, but I will say 12 months ago he was, you know, sharing the spotlight with what is perhaps he's at least the biggest star in AEW, one of the biggest stars, if not the biggest stars in wrestling, in MJF, a guy who turns everything to gold that he touches. And so could that have a lot to do with it? And then, of course, Wardlow had after he slid the ring to CM Punk and all that stuff, you know, he kind of rode the momentum for a little bit and it kind of carried him. But all that has completely petered out, I think, to the point where, like, I don't know what he is. Is he just supposed to be like a Goldberg ripoff? Is he supposed to be a Batista ripoff? Like, what is he?
Yeah, good question. I do want to get to the Elite stuff next. So Hangman comes out, saves the day for the Elite, runs off the Blackpool Combat Club. And I had seen it on Twitter before I actually saw it because I was a little behind last night watching. I think I would have popped a little more. But this hasn't happened in a while, but I got chills when he grabbed the mic and started his, yelling. He was like, "We are the Elite." I got a little chill bump. I'm not gonna lie. I was glad to see that come. We were talking a couple months ago about at what point does he come back around. And I think you even mentioned it. You're like, he's going to be the guy that evens out the team against the Blackpool Combat Club. So it looks like that'll be happening next week. At the pay-per-view, which should be fun.
Yeah, Anarchy in the arena, so you have 4-on-4. You got to think that Takeshita is going to interject himself in this somehow, and it would probably make sense for him to be Blackpool Combat Club.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, because, Kenny has dropped these hints. Who can I trust? Who can I trust?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the big free agent that's out there that you could get for Wembley to run a huge 5 versus 5 would be Kota Ibushi, who has a history with Kenny Omega. And you could do Anarchy in the arena too, or Anarchy in Wembley, or whatever. Warfare in Wembley. There you go, Tony Khan. Take that. That's free for you. Warfare in Wembley with 5-on-5. And you have the Young Bucks, Kenny, Hangman, and Kota Ibushi versus Danielson, Yuta, Claudio, Moxley, and Takeshita.
Yeah.
And you have that be one of the big matches that headlines Wembley. Wembley also shaping up. They didn't advertise it as much this week, it felt like, probably because the pay-per-view is only a week away at this point.
Yeah.
But it could also be because, if I read on the internet correctly, they've already sold 75,000 tickets.
That's a bunch of fucking tickets.
So, how much more do you need to promote it? You ain't even fucking announced a match for it yet. And if the thing only holds 90K, well, shit, you're 9/10 of the way there.
Yeah, because they're just they're releasing the tickets in chunks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't look like they're going to have any problem selling it out.
Yeah, and so, there's been a big push, and then it felt like Wednesday night was they mentioned it, obviously, but it felt like Double or Nothing was the primary focus of the show, trying to get to that point.
Yeah.
For the 28th. But yeah, it was very Avengers-esque. With all, like, Kenny had the fucking trash can looking like Captain America, and Adam Page comes out with the eye patch like Thor, and has the broom with the barbed wire on it. And
I didn't think about that.
Yeah,
blonde hair,
huge pop, by the way.
Yeah, that dude is so over in that company. Like, There was a thing yesterday or day before that was like, would he go anywhere else? I was like, I don't fucking think so. Like, do you follow him on Instagram or anything?
No.
So, like, he shut down his Twitter a while back, but just some of the stuff he posts on Instagram every once in a while, I'm like, I don't think that dude's going anywhere, man. He's having the time of his life. Like, and he probably, he just had a kid. He probably likes working fucking 2 days a week and then going home.
Yeah, and he seems like a pretty self-actualized guy. The big thing that you always have to ask about these people who are in AEW, who have never been in WWE and could potentially make the jump here in the near future is, like, are they motivated by that? Like, are they motivated by more money and a bigger spotlight? And I think when it comes to Adam Page, obviously neither you or I know this guy personally, so we're purely speculating here. But, like, I don't know if that means a lot to him. I think probably to Kenny and the Young Bucks and Adam, like, building up AEW is really important to them. And trying to get it to a place to where it can sustain itself long past those guys retire from in-ring competition probably means the world to them.
Yeah.
So we will see how it shapes up. Obviously they are going to headline Dynamite as it looks like Collision. That roster is shaping up. And I guess this is probably as good a time as any to talk about that. All the rumors that are coming out with that stuff.
It's been a weird couple days, man. Yeah, so the upfronts were yesterday. They officially made the announcement about Collision. There was supposedly some poster artwork that had Punk on it, and then it was removed, and then supposedly Punk was like, "Yeah, I don't want to be on there. I want it to be a surprise." And they were like, "That's the fucking worst kept secret." Like, even my wife would probably know that as a rumor right now, right? That Punk is going to be on there. Like,
yeah,
everybody fucking knows. And then, but we did see Miro back on TV last week, and Rosa going into Tony's office. I had just completely fucking forgotten about Andrade, to be honest. But he's in the discussion, and that's fucking awesome.
Yeah, so I told you before we started rolling that I found AEW posted an actual picture, which I guess is the promo material they used for the upfronts Wednesday, because it's official. And so it's basically broken up into 4 tiers. And so on the bottom tier, you have all of House of Black, Brody, Malachi, Buddy, and Julia, and they look so fucking badass on this poster. I mean, they're the coolest thing. Right above them, from left to right, you have Andrade, FTR, and Miro. Above them, in the two biggest, I mean, they take up the biggest part of the poster, you have Orange Cassidy and MJF. And like I told you before I started rolling, the way it looks graphically, it looks like there could have been another person who was smack dab in the middle of that, and at last minute they had to just move MJF and Cassidy closer.
Yeah.
But that's interesting because Cassidy, the international champion, so are those secondary titles, are they going to be show specific? And if so, why the hell is the TNT title not on Collision, since Collision is on TNT?
Right.
Whatever. And then above them, from left to right, you have Samoa Joe, Thunder Rosa, and Powerhouse Hobbs. If this is a hard brand split, this has to be the first inkling that we've got of who is going to make up the rosters. Now, obviously, the rumors have been that Collision was always going to be headlined primarily by FTR and Punk. That was going to be their show. And Blackpool Combat Club and the Elite were going to stay on Dynamite on Wednesdays. I don't know, man. I dig the Collision logo. It's a throwback to the Nitro logo. Red and black. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. I saw a comparison side by side of both of those actually this morning. I thought it was kind of funny.
Yeah, so do they get hit with a cease and desist letter from WWE, considering WWE actually owns all of WCW material and not Turner Network? I don't know.
All right.
It probably has no legal standing, I'm sure, that they would figure out, but, WWE might just send it off anyway. You have to think that MJF as a champion is going to be pulling double duty, right?
Yeah, I heard at first it was going to be a hard split, and then there was a thing today that was like, it's not going to be necessarily a hard split that they first thought it was, and then there was the thing I sent you before lunch from comicbook.com that said that, Kenny cut a promo after the show went off last night about mending fences with people, and clearly he meant, like, Adam Page at first, but then he even said something to the effect of people who we couldn't stand to be in a room with for a while or something to that effect, which was most people was like, yeah, that's clearly talking about Punk, and like, are they going to work that out for the greater good? We had talked about what do you need to do to sell tickets to Wembley, but it looks like they don't need to hype that up, but that would still be a fucking huge event for any pay-per-view, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, I love myself a good old-fashioned Civil War storyline in pro wrestling. I think it makes for just some great television. At some point at one of these pay-per-views, be it maybe you want a little bit of a build to it, do they do a Collision versus Dynamite, for control of the company, a la some like WCW versus NWO type of stuff? I don't know. The big question too. The big question too coming into Collision is, how is the crowd going to respond to CM Punk when he returns?
I mean, they're going to be in Chicago for that first week, so I think he'll go over like gangbusters. Now, the next week when they go to Toronto, is it Toronto?
Did it get announced at the first? Did it get announced that the first Collision is in? In Chicago?
The first week is Chicago.
Okay.
Unless I'm crazy.
I thought last night or Wednesday night it was Tony announced that the first location for the first Collision would be announced later. Now, it could actually be, the rumors and the dirt sheets have found out it's going to be Chicago.
Yeah.
But I didn't know.
Unless I'm crazy. Oh, come on, Google.
Technology has not been on our side today.
Yeah, it really hasn't. All signs. United Center as its first venue. Okay. All signs pointing.
Pointing, okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense. Punk's never going to get booed in Chicago. But will he be, that next week, in the following week?
Yeah.
Will he be the returning hero, or will he be seen as, holy shit, this dude put into jeopardy everything that AEW tried to work for?
It's going to be interesting to see who's on board with him being back and who's not. If Kenny and them are willing to make peace, and apparently he and Jericho already had a meeting. Nothing has come out really about how that went, but at least not that I've seen. Here's the interesting thing, though. All of a sudden, Ace Steel is back in the conversation again because Punk. I don't know if it's just Punk being Punk, but like they have this fucking announcement about at the upfronts yesterday about the show, and then all of a sudden he's like, "Yeah, I want Ace Steel to be back," and they're like, "Well, he can work with you, but he can't be at the fucking tapings." And then a thing comes out today and was like, Ace Steel got rehired months ago by AEW to work with people like outside of the venues or whatever. I'm like, okay, what's happening here?
Yeah, I think some of these people, this is all speculative. No one fucking knows anything, really.
Right.
I think if you're paying attention to CM Punk's Instagram, I've seen some pictures from it where he's talking shit about Brian Alvarez and all these dirt sheets. And what did he say? He was like, when you're the king, or this kind of stuff comes with wearing the crown, and calling himself the king of pro wrestling, which, hey, look at here. He's moved a lot of headlines to not be on TV for fucking, 9 months, 8 months?
Yeah.
He's been gone a while, and that's all anybody can talk about. This is kind of interesting. I had this thought today. Like, AEW is kind of, and I'm a history nut, it kind of reminds me of, like, the American Revolution. and just go with me here as I kind of like unwrap this, because I haven't thought about it too much. This is one of those like getting in the shower thoughts. But like when you and I first started watching AEW, there really was like a underdog kind of aspect to it, a la like the American Revolution, and you have this ragtag group of Washington and Franklin and Jefferson and all these Samuel Adams, all these figures emerge, right, as they sort of fight back against the British monarchy. But then the revolutionaries win. And the big thing, if you are a fan of Hamilton, there's that great song by Jonathan Groff, who's playing King George after the revolution's over. It was like, oh, what comes next? Now what are you going to do? Now you're free. Now comes the part of building the state building the infrastructure, building a country. Now what the fuck are you going to do? And I think that's kind of the situation that AEW finds itself in right now, which is they didn't have a lot of pressure on them in the beginning, and it was all gravy. Everything they did was fantastic. And then, Bryan Danielson comes on board, and Adam Cole comes on board, and CM Punk comes on board. And now you are this organization to now we are in the big leads. How are we going to conduct ourselves? And I think that's where AEW kind of finds itself in now. We're like that early, colonial time in America where they're trying to fucking get the Continental Congress together and they're trying to figure out how are we going to govern ourselves? What the fuck is this place going to be? That's where they find themselves at now. Now, much like that time in American history, there's a lot of moments where it could have went either way, right? And shit could have went south, and the Republic was kind of saved by this and that. AEW's had its similar type of moments. Fucking Ace Steel biting a motherfucker. There's a brawl. All kinds of shit is popping up, right? So we'll see if AEW goes the way of America and keeps this thing going and gets it back on track, or is this collision thing going to kind of be like it was for WCW, where they announced Thursday Night Thunder, another 2 hours of programming, and that's essentially the death knell for WCW.
Yeah.
I hope not.
I hope not. I hope not as well. They got to figure out what to do with Rampage on Friday nights. Ratings are terrible and they keep moving it around because of basketball and other things, and ratings get even worse. But they're not booking it that great either,
That's another thing weird, too with TNT. They're going to have to move this too. It's going to get preempted by basketball. Right now, TNT has the Eastern Conference Finals, so going forward, they're going to move this thing around because TNT is the flagship sports program they have. But I cut you off. Go ahead.
No. I was just saying that, like, if you're recording Rampage the same night as Dynamite and you got a bunch of fucking people there, I just feel like they're not booking it as strongly as they can. Or could, and that's got to be one of the reasons why just why the ratings are so bad. Like, there's just not any matches worth really watching. There used to be. I feel like there used to be matches worth watching on Rampage, and there just really hasn't been in a while. I don't know. I could be wrong.
I do want to bring up this one point, though. So if I can be Conspiracy Patrick for a second and put on my tinfoil hat. Okay, tell me what you think about this. We know the ratings for AEW have not been great. Now comes this move to put another AEW show on a Saturday night time slot at 7 o'clock. Could this be nothing more than a sort of 4D chess move from Warner Brothers to put AEW on this time slot Saturday night at 7 o'clock so that years from now, when some college football television deals come up, they can go to the NCAA and say, hey, look, we want a piece of Saturday night college football. Here's what we've programmed on this time slot before, and here's how well it did. Think about what we can do if we put a college football game on here. Could that be what this is? Or are they actually, over the moon with how AEW is doing and decided to reward them with another 2 hour show?
I mean, it could be either way. I don't know. It just looks like if they're going to have Punk and FTR and Andrade and Miro and some of those folks on Collision, it seems like the booking is already going to be better than what they're doing with Rampage, right?
Yeah, we just know how valuable live sports are to networks.
Right.
And so if you want a piece of that pie, I think what you have to demonstrate, first of all, you got to come with a bag, right? You got to throw a bunch of money at the NCAA to broadcast some of those games, or probably just to conferences, right? I mean, that's what happened with the SEC. That's why the SEC is going to ESPN this year, and they're going away from CBS. So, all I'm saying is I would not be surprised if 2 years from now Collision gets canceled or gets moved to another night because Warner Brothers has bought, say, a Big 12 shootout Saturday night that they're then going to program the Big 12 game of the week Saturday night at 7 o'clock on TNT.
I mean, you might be right. You might be right. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, though. A lot of wrestling to watch through the week, adding a Saturday night.
And that's a big thing, is how many wrestling fans are there? Hardcore wrestling fans that are going to watch the type of product that AEW puts out. I don't know. I mean, now you were talking about 3 hours on Monday Night Raw. You were talking about NXT on Tuesdays, 2 hours of Dynamite on Wednesday. Thursday, I guess we get a break. Friday, there's fucking 2 hours of SmackDown. Now there's 2 hours of Collision. If there's a pay-per-view, that's another 16 hours almost. Feels like 16 hours on a fucking Sunday. That's how long some of these damn things are.
Yeah, I mean, next weekend we got WWE pay-per-view on Saturday, and then Sunday night AEW. That'll be a 12-hour event.
If you are a wrestling journalist, or you are a person that writes about wrestling or makes their living producing content for wrestling, and you hate your family, this is this is great. A great excuse to not hang out with them, right? Oh, I can't hang out on Saturday. I gotta fucking watch Collision.
Yeah, I don't do shit anyway. I mean, I sit at the house most nights. I might get out one night a month and go hear some music or something, but. So, I mean, I'm in. Fine. What else am I doing? But I'm devoting a lot of my life to wrestling right now.
This screams Patrick watches AEW Collision at 6:30 Sunday morning when I wake up over a coffee. That's what this is going to be.
Yeah. It is going to be interesting to see what happens during football season.
Oh, I'm not watching Collision. I'm not watching Collision in football season. Sorry. I'll keep up with it on Twitter, but yeah, I'll DVR it and watch it Sunday morning.
Yeah. Well, once again, happy birthday to us, 1 year. I do want to kind of wrap it up, though. We've had to start and stop 3 different times because of some, I don't know if it's internet connectivity issues or what, but we've had errors. We started out on Libsyn, that crashed, and we moved to Riverside, and it's fucked up 2 different times. So I got to try to see if I can piece this together and get it released in the morning. Normally, we just download a file, throw it in a template with some music, and upload that shit. And that's the extent of my editing. But I actually got to devote a little bit of time to this tonight. So thank y'all for listening. We appreciate it, man. It's been 1 year. We took 1 week off in there for scheduling reasons. We even did a fucking episode in a car, driving down the fucking highway, coming home from Florida. That's how much we're devoted to this show. So, yeah, man, if y'all would, it would be awesome. Just share us with your friends. Fucking share us on Twitter at Alabama Slam Pod. Tell some of your friends about us. We'd really appreciate it. Patrick, you got any parting thoughts?
No, just appreciate everybody that's been with us since the beginning as we try to figure out what this show is. I'm sure if we went back and listened to those first episodes, we'd be embarrassed with the way that we sound. So yeah, thanks for going on this ride with us, everybody. We appreciate it, and we're gonna have a lot of wrestling to talk about come June 17th. I'm sure we'll get another 2 hours. So
yeah, and we'll probably do some sort of little preview next week of the upcoming pay-per-views. We kind of did that tonight, but we could get a little more in depth or something next week. We'll see what happens. But yeah, man, thanks again to y'all. We appreciate it, and we'll holler at y'all next week.
Later, guys.